As you recall in the previous training video, we learned how to create basic formulas, simple arithmetic like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, and we even did it to a range of cells to get the total down below and also the average. Well, in this training video, we're going to go beyond simple formulas to something more complex known as functions. In other words, what you put in the function will spit out something, and hopefully it's what we're looking for here. And the two functions we're going to be working on is the sum and average. The sum is, well, just like it sounds, summing up a range of cells. In fact, it's really a shortcut for quickly adding up a range without having to type it in or click each cell. But before I do that, when you look at a database and there's formulas and functions in it, how can you tell which cells contain formulas and functions? I mean, if I come down here and I type in a number that looks like the same one up above, well, because it is, which one contains a value or just somebody entering in data, and the one that contains the result of a formula? Well, you can go ahead and click inside the cell, look up in the formula bar, and there you go. The formula is hidden, but the end result or the value of the formula is displayed here. If you want to reverse that and display the formula but not the value, so you can tell which cells contain formula or functions, it also works with functions, then you want to use the shortcut keys Control, hold down the Control key, and hit the tilde or the apostrophe. It's that key to the left of the 1 key with the exclamation point above the 1. Go ahead and hit Control, tilde, and it expands and it shows you all the formulas but hides the value or the end result of the formula or function. So all these other cells don't have formulas or functions because, well, they're just displaying simple values. Or down below, the values are now hidden, that you can see the formula and functions and quickly go, oh, okay, these are the cells that are dependent upon other cells to get the values that we want down below. And you can go ahead and select another cell and see that that's dependent upon what's selected up above in blue, over here, this range, and in any case, to go ahead and toggle back to hide the formulas and functions, Control tilde again, and we're back to where we started. And let me come down here and select the cell and hit the delete key, get rid of that. So to start with the first function, it's the sum function. It adds up a range of cells, and there's many ways you can insert the function. One way is to type it in, simply type it. And whenever you insert a formula or a function, or you start typing one, always start with the equals. Hit the equals key on the keyboard so Excel knows that whatever you type after it is going to calculate it. In other words, when I hit equals and I type in SUM so I can bring up the sum function, you can see FX, that means it's a function, and there it is, sum. You can also arrow down and look at all the others and select those. In fact, when you select one, it gives you a synopsis of that function, adds a cell specified by a given set of conditions or criteria, or just the basic sum function adds up all the numbers in a range of cells. And so you want to make sure you hit the equals key before you start typing it in, because, let me hit escape a couple of times to undo that or get out of the cell and not accept the changes. If I just start typing in sum, Excel goes, oh, you're just in data entry mode. I don't have to do any work. So let's hit the backspace key, type in the equals, and signify to Excel that, hey, we're going to type in something we want you to calculate, and it's going to be a function. As soon as you start typing in the first letter, it pulls up a list of functions that are available, and we want to narrow it down to sum. And when you see the sum highlighted, then all you have to do is go ahead and either double click on it to accept it, or let me hit the escape key and type it in again, equals SUM. When it's highlighted here, you can also hit the tab key and it pops it open up above and you can see the syntax down below. And so the function says it wants to sum up something. And you can sum up a range of data, the first range, this is for the second range, and so on and so forth. So to keep it simple right now, let's just do one range. What range do we want to quickly add up or sum up? It's over here. You can, well, either go ahead and type it in or just click and drag and select the range. And notice if I start selecting it and it kind of goes off all over the place, just go ahead and click and drag again so you can get the range that you want. Now when you look over here at the syntax up above, you see how it starts with C7 and ends with F7, but there's a colon in between. The colon means through. So C7, start over here and go through F7. And then when we're finished, we can go ahead and hit enter, or if we have additional ranges that we want to add, including this one, then notice how in the syntax it's got number 1 in bold, and then it's got a comma. If you go ahead and follow suit and type in the comma, it goes to the next range, number 2. So what's the second range? Well, it could be this down here, and then comma, number 3, that down here, and you can just keep doing it until the cows come home, but I'm not going to do that. So let me hit backspace, 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 and go all the way back. So I just have the first range, and hit enter. Sweet. We get the results here. If you click and drag and select it, you can look down below on the status bar, 56201, 56201. Now you get this little green error checking that pops up that says, hey, something's wrong with the function. Well, maybe not wrong, but something that it wants you to be aware of. So when you select the cell, you get this little tag that pops over to the left-hand side. You get the pop-up when you hover over it that says the formula in the cell refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. Well, there's no additional numbers adjacent to it, but to get more specific, click on the drop-down arrow, and it says it's omitting adjacent cells. Okay, that makes more sense. This adjacent cell is omitted. Okay, it's not included, and it wants you to know that. Are you okay with that? If so, then you can just leave it as is and just keep going on. Or if you don't like to see the error, you can click on the drop-down arrow and say ignore. Now, after a while, if you start ignoring a lot of errors and you're like, ooh, maybe there are some errors I should pay attention to, but too late, I just ignored them. Hold on, we can go ahead and change that. We can reset the worksheet so all the errors that you ignored will come back and like ghosts and haunt you. Okay, so we can do that by coming up here, clicking on the File tab to go backstage down to Options. Come up here, click on Formulas, and it's right here, Error Checking. So click on Reset Ignored Errors and they'll all come back. Spooky. And then by the way, since we're here, by default, this is checked where it enables background error checking. So Excel's going to look for patterns. If you break a pattern, it's going to think it's an error. You can go ahead and uncheck that if you don't want any error checking, in case if you're being annoyed by all those green little indicators, which by the way, you can change the color and do something else and bring out the inner artist in you and do something like red. Fabulous. I'm going to go ahead and click Reset, click Okie dokie, and it comes back. Okay, that is until I ignore it again. Now, if I need to make any changes to what I've selected, you can go ahead and double click on it and it selects the range and the syntax is back up. You can go ahead and add a comma and then go to the next range, but I'm not going to do that. Or you can go ahead out into the range that's been selected and manipulate it. If you hover over one of the corner handles where you can see its little box and you get arrows pointing in opposite directions, you can click and drag to expand it over or down, and just include a whole range of cells, but I'm going to go back. Or better yet, if you go out here and you're like, oops, I didn't mean to do that, and you're having problems and you want to go back, forget it. Just hit the escape key so it doesn't accept the changes that you were trying to do but then decided to undo. Or better yet, you can hit enter and just undo it, but it's better for me just to hit the escape key. You can also do it to simple formulas here. If you double click, it shows you all the different cells that are part of the formula. And if you're like, you know what, I don't want it to add up this cell, I want this cell maybe somewhere else. You can go ahead and click the border of the cell and move it over here. So I know it doesn't make sense as far as, hey, what are you adding up? But you get the idea in your spreadsheet. If you have cells here and you have a cell over here that you want to include, then you can always rearrange it, move it around if you'd like, or just click and drag the border to move it back. We're back to where we started. Hit enter. Fabulous. Now, if you want, you can just simply type through the function when it pops up there, like equals SUM, and you can see it's coming up there, and just hit the tab key so it pops open. And instead of using the mouse and clicking and dragging, you can just keep typing through and saying, okay, it's going to be C8 colon CF8, enter. There you go. I mean, there's benefits or advantages not having to click and drag, especially if you've got 100 rows to click and drag down within the column, because once you start dragging, Excel sometimes gets a little excited and jumps way ahead, and next thing you know, you're down to row 10,000. So it's better if you know the range, instead of clicking and dragging to select it, just to go ahead and type it in. All right. Hey, we're omitting adjacent cells, we'll ignore. Now, in addition to go ahead and typing in the first couple of letters to bring up the function here, let me go ahead and choose the next cell down below and use the sum function to add up this range here. But instead of typing it in, remember when you type it in equals SUM, well, in any case, the first letter, you see the FX. The FX is also up here, and you can insert the function by clicking on the button up there if you'd like. Let me go ahead and hit the escape key a couple of times so I can get back out. And why would you want to do that? Well, when you click on the insert function button, you get a little bit more information, a little bit more details that may be helpful when it comes to figuring out a function and knowing what to place inside each of the fields. For example, click on Insert Function. There's the window. You can go ahead and search for a function by typing it in and then clicking Go. Or with most recently used selected, you can look down below and see if it's something that's been recently used, like the sum function, and then get a synopsis about it. Adds up all the numbers in a range of cells. You can add up 1 range, 2 ranges, 3 ranges, as many as you'd like, or you can click on the drop-down arrow and see if it's in one of the categories. Is it in financial, date and time? In any case, you can select all and bypass that, and it's sorted alphabetically, so the A's all the way down to the S's. There it is. In fact, let's just go ahead and scroll back up, and let's just type it in. Let's delete that, type in sum, and click go right there. So once you have it, select it, click Okie dokie, and it opens up the function's arguments, which gives you a little bit more information and shows you a little bit more detail, especially if you're working from one part of the screen but trying to add up cells in another part that you can't see right here. So instead of, the range over to the left-hand side, maybe it's in column AA. And in fact, if you look at this, the range that it pulls up by default is the H column. Oh, that's kind of kooky. I don't want to add up the range up above. And the reason why Excel is doing that, because it is looking at adjacent cells. It looks like we got some adjacent cells here. I'll just quickly latch onto these guys. And we're like, no, we don't want to do that. So instead, you can either go ahead and type in the range here if you want. And that would be, of course, C9 colon, which again means through, F9. You can do lowercase, that's fine. And when you're done typing, a couple of things happen. First of all, it shows you the numbers for each cell here, or as many as it can fit. You can compare 210.34, 210.34. So that way, if you're in one part of the worksheet and you're summing up a range that you're typing in some cell range that you can't see within the screen there, and you see a bunch of numbers that you're not familiar with, at least that's a clue that maybe you got the wrong range. In any case, you get some of the samples there within the range to compare or look at. And then down below, it gives you the total and the formula result 901.03. That's good to know, because if the result comes back and you're like, that's not what I expected, then you want to take a look at the range you have selected, the data that's coming into the function. If it's garbage in and it's garbage out, just make sure you get the correct range and the correct data so you can get the formula result that you're looking for. You can do it that way and just click OK, or let me go ahead and delete it. These little boxes here are collapsible. They're known as the collapsible dialog box buttons. When you click on it, it collapses the screen so you can click and drag the title bar, move the window, not the screen, out of the way. Or you can go ahead and click and drag to select the range, and then go ahead and click on it to expand it, and then click and drag it up so we can see it. Click for the next range, number 2, select another range. You can also hit the Enter key on the keyboard to expand it. You can keep going on and on and on, but we'll just keep it for the first range here and click Okie dokie, and there we go. Let's go to the next one. And there's not only the function button here that you can click on, but you can also go to the Formulas tab. There's Insert Function. And also, well, there's the Auto Sum. It's the sum function that will quickly sum up. In fact, you can see in the pop-up down below, it is the sum function. Let me click on the drop-down arrow. There's more functions, and it pulls up the same window. But let's take a look at the Auto Sum, though. If you click on that, automatically it inserts the function, which is really fast. But then again, it's doing its thing here, trying to find a pattern, saying, oh, I got adjacent cells. Let me select the range up above. And you're like, no. All you have to do is go ahead and click and drag to select another range, hit Enter, and sweet. I mean, that was really fast. If you're on the Formulas tab, go ahead and click into the cell, click Auto Sum, click and drag, hit Enter. I think that's the fastest way when it comes to adding up a range of cells by using that feature. How about the average? Go ahead and click in the average cell for the employee ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, and then click on the Auto Sum drop-down arrow. We also got the Auto Average, and then go ahead and click and drag, hit Enter, and then copy and paste that to the rest of the cells so we don't have to keep doing that over and over again. And as you recall, the fastest way to copy and paste is by using the autofill handle. Hover over the bottom right-hand corner until you see the black cross, click and drag, it automatically copies and pastes and fills in the formula up above to the cells down below, but going by a pattern. So it says, okay, this formula in the next row is going to be just that, the next row, so it's not looking at row 7 anymore, but row 8. And you can see up here in the formula bar, when I use the up and down arrow keys to go up, row 7, down to row 8, 9, the columns are the same, but it's the rows that are updating. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as soon as I upload a new video, you'll be notified instantly, and you can do that by coming over here and clicking on my face. You can also click here to support me, so for $2 a month, you can have access to over 2,700 training videos, all ad-free, and for a few bucks more, you can have access to my exercises, instructor notes, quizzes, certificate of completion, and a whole lot more.